Right now, my pleasure to bring to the stage a thinking man with deep philosophical views, a remarkable composer, a musical visionary, and one of the most acclaimed guitarists in music history. Welcome, Steve Vai.
Well, can you do that again?
Thank you for that very warm welcome. Very cool. Thank you very much.
Wow, Steve's been here many times. You've been a long-time supporter of what we do here at MI.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the first seminars I ever gave was here. I think it was in like 1982 or something. This is a wonderful school. Great location.
I think what you're doing right now is probably the most interesting thing to you, and it's probably the most interesting thing to us. Tell us what's new in your world.
Oh, okay. Well, I just finished up a tour that had me out on the road for about 2 years, and we did 254 shows. Yeah, it was amazing. It was so great. I love touring, especially when you have a group of guys that love touring. And we filmed a show over here at the Nokia. In 2012, that's how long ago it was since I started this tour. I just did the last show a couple of months ago in Poland with the Session Orchestra. They had built a new opera house and they wanted me to open it, which was quite an honor. So, you know, putting a music DVD together is relatively easy, but, you know, a smart guy here came up with an idea that added another, I don't know, 4 or 5 months to the project. I thought, how cool would it be to create extra footage that has a little representation of each city on every date of the tour. So it's a vast project because now I got to go out to everybody that has taking iPhone footage. I had a guy with me that had a good camera and he was shooting a lot of stuff. Because the band is really funny. You know, off stage, we're just like brothers, you know? And we have a great time. And so I gathered all this material and put it in chronological order. And it's 9 legs of the tour. And right when I left to come here, because it's all I've been doing for about 15 hours a day, is editing. And it's so funny. You guys are going to think I'm out of my mind.
I love that you say that you tour with guys who love to tour.
Yeah.
And I think in a touring mode, you know, you obviously want to be out there with the people that you're going to have a good time with, right?
Yeah.
You know, what do you look for in musicians who you play with?
Guys that want to have a good time. Yeah. Yeah. You know, when you go on tour, especially if it's like 2 years or even just a month, there's no secrets at sea. You know, everybody's personality becomes very exaggerated. So if you go on tour with somebody that's kind of cranky, unhappy guy or person, when you get on tour, they become big assholes. And there's nothing worth touring with somebody because they can bring everything down. So I actually look for guys that, you know, and like I say, it exaggerates your kind of foibles or your state of mind. So I look for guys that are actually kind of happy and fun-loving, and when they get on tour, boy, it's just a blast. And I've been touring now for 34 years, and in the beginning it was very difficult because I didn't get my sea legs together, you know. But through experience, I learned how to, you know. And now touring is like a vacation. Wow. Oh man, I get all the sleep I want. Everything's you know, I get to see, I go out every day a little bit and see the cities I'm in, and it's really nice. So that's, I mean, obviously they have to be able to play their ass off, you know. But they got to be cool guys too, because at the end of a tour, when you look back, it's like a chunk of your life. And I've toured with so many different people, And sometimes even really big tours are just like dark nights of the soul. I mean, they're just not pleasant memories, really. But I have a tendency to look at all the positive things of all those events.
What's it like to play with the symphony orchestras?
Symphonies are different. Some of them are really like the Metropole in Holland, where I made a record with. Amazing people, young. They can improvise. They really accept challenges. You know, they really look. They take great pride in playing impossible stuff and doing it really well. And then sometimes if you're with a stuffy symphony, they just don't want to know anything about you. They don't really they don't respect the music as much. It's just read it down and whatever. So when you're on stage, though, and the most beautiful thing about, for me, playing with a symphony is you get an idea for something in your head, a musical idea. And if you know how to compose, composing is like this world of complete liberation, you know, because you hear something and you can write it down, and there's so many colors to work with, and it's infinite. And so you get an idea, and you write it, and you say, well, I wonder what this is going to sound like. And all of a sudden, you're on stage, or you're hearing it, and you're like, holy shit, that is really cool. It's like magic or something. It's like this idea that arose, this inspiration that arose that you struggled to sketch out, all of a sudden, there it is. And sometimes it's much better than I expected it could have been, and sometimes it's a little bit of a disaster, but I took 5 months off because the North Netherlands Orchestra in Holland asked me to compose a piece of music. Now, I had 5 months, so I had to figure out something that wasn't going to, because it's 25, 30 minutes of music can take months to compose. So I needed something that didn't have some, really difficult guitar stuff that I had to learn, because right after that, I went directly on tour with the band. I went right from Holland to, I think, Israel or something. So I thought, okay, what can I do that's beautiful, unique? And this is a great exercise where you just kind of give yourself parameters. You say, I want to do something that doesn't have a hard guitar part, something that's I've never done before, I've never heard before. And then you just kind of put it out there. And then all of a sudden, this idea it just came. And it was, okay, some of you know I use a sustainer on the guitar. So I can hold one note as long as the battery will survive, which could be days. So I thought, I'm going to write a piece of music where I play one note, and I just hold it for 17 minutes. While the orchestra just weaves in and out of it, Yeah. And I thought, well, that's a cool idea. Well, I got very excited. And because one note, with all the harmony that you can build around it and all the movement, it takes on all these different shapes and these different colors and everything. So you think it would be easy to perform, right? But the goal was to stand completely still and not move, except a little bit of vibrato now and then. So, and tiny little face movements, like even less than that. And while if I go like this, the orchestra's going or something, So that was the performance. It was like a meditation, You put your attention on the performer who's just standing there, and you listen to the music, and that note just changes, all colors and everything, and it was just grand, And when the idea came, I just got so excited, and then the little voice in my head said, "What, are you out of your mind? You're going to stand on stage for 17 minutes? People aren't going to get this. They want to see you shred, And some people got it. Well, most people actually got it. I finally wrote a guitar part that everybody could play. One note. But can you stand there without moving?
When you talk about something more like out there on the art edge, you know, I'm thinking of certainly a mentor of yours who was very influenced by Eric Satie and Edgar Varese, which of course is Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
And Frank Zappa, you know, belying his surf music roots, you know, which is, a lot of people don't know that. I mean, you know, obviously had some very serious musicality at his core. And what?
He was the mother lode.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
What was that experience? What was he like on a personal level?
Frank? Yeah. Well, you have to remember, I was 18 when I started working for him. And then I moved out to California here when I was 20. And I started, then that's when I joined the band. And I toured with him for 3 years and was doing transcriptions the whole time, too. Frank was the most extraordinary man I ever met. He was brilliant, he was witty, he was amazingly in the moment. You know, he was very present. I mean, Frank, when you were talking to Frank, he could read your intentions. And it's very intimidating, you know, because he was able to read people really well. And the beautiful thing about Frank was that I got to see, and it had a huge impact on me because I was so young and impressionable, was that when Frank got an idea for something, which was always, he just did it. He would come up with something, and he'd have that feeling of enthusiasm, and he would just do it. And he didn't make any excuses, and he didn't expect anybody to do it for him. And then you watch him do it, and you don't realize when you're in the throes of it, you know, how much he's accomplishing and how focused. I say focused, but it was beyond that because focus almost sounds like something you have to try to do, you know? But when you're really excited about something, there's no focus necessary. It just happens automatically. And that Frank was on automatic. And so when I left Frank's band, I just thought, okay, I want to do this. I'm just going to do it. You just do it. And you figure it out. And you only do what's fun to you, what's exciting to you. There is no reason to do anything else.
What did Bill Westcott teach you?
Bill Westcott was my teacher in high school. He was just this amazing kind of savant, genius, tormented, you know. And he had a music theory class. Not a lot of high schools have that anymore. And I was in 7th grade. And you couldn't take the class until you were like in 10th grade. But I really wanted to take it. And I absorbed music. You know, I loved everything about composition. I mean, to me, written music looked like art. So beautiful, you know. And Bill taught me how to write music. I started in 7th grade, and I took classes with him every year through high school. And they were intensive, man. He didn't mess around. I mean, every day I had to come in with a piece of music that was written out. And it wasn't like, you know, here's the chord and here's the note. And then he would take this, and he could sight read anything. And he would say, okay, this is what it sounds like in minor. This is what it sounds like in Lydian. This is retrograde, and he'd read it backwards. He'd say, this is what it sounds like in inversion, and he'd read it upside down. And now take this melody that you wrote and split it out for, you know, 4 French horns and this, that, and the other thing. And so by the time, when I was in high school, I wrote my first orchestra score for the high school orchestra. It was an abysmal disaster. And I still have the scar on my finger from writing. But so Bill really, he turned me on to all the different periods of classical music. That was, and Joe Satch was had taken theory lessons with Bill also. Joe was about 4 years older than me. So I was learning all this theory and writing, but I'm going home and playing, you know, down. I didn't know really how to apply it to the guitar. They seemed like 2 different worlds to me. And then when I started taking lessons with Joe, for those who might not know, I was 12 years old and I started taking lessons from a 15-year-old Joe Satriani. Yeah, and we went to the same school, and I'll tell you something, brother, Joe was always great. He was always brilliant. He was always as cool as you can imagine. He had long hair, beard. It was rumored that he smoked pot, you know. and he had a band, and my lessons were everything. You know? So Joe learned. That's we trace our musical understandings to Bill Westcott.
Great.
I know it sounds bizarre, and I get flailed for this, but when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, teenage, listening to all these great progressive rock guitar players of the 70s, old blues players, and blues in general, I didn't really get it. It was too predictable. It didn't have the fire. Obviously, later I really, I get it, and I love it.
As a part of a band, or the period of your career, which was playing in other people's bands very famously, were there concessions that you needed to make to fit into those things, or was it, or did they bring you in kind of because of what you already were? You know what I'm saying? Did you have to change what you were doing, or was it like, we need this guy because this is the guy?
You mean the various bands in the 80s and stuff?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, they came. They came out of what seemed nowhere, and when I look back, I think there was one thing throughout my entire career that was of primary importance. Getting a gig, trying to make enough money to live, what I'm going to do next, those were all important, but they weren't of primary importance. They were of relative importance. Of primary importance was always the same, and that was the feeling that I got and still get when I get an idea for something that's exciting, or I come up with a riff. You're always growing. You're always growing. I know that sounds cliche, but I'm 54, and when I think back to when I was 18, 19, 20. Thinking, oh my God, 50. No way, old fart, But there's so much that you learn every day, and it can change your perspective on life and change who you are. And I'm just so happy right now, And the one thing that I discovered was that desire to play, that desire to make real in the world my inspirations, was always paramount. It cut through everything. It cut through depression. It cut through if I was poor, if I was hungry, if I was whatever I was going through with relationships. Everything paled. It softened things because it was always just like this thing that was always there. And so that's what I focused on. And because of that, because that was number one for me, things came as a result. Frank Zappa asked me to be in his band because I had a particular interest in playing the weird music or difficult things. And so that's why. And the reason I could play those things was because I loved doing it. I was interested. You don't try to get into Frank Zappa's band, He goes, okay, you have what I need. Come,
yeah.
And then things like I'll point to some of the pivotal experiences that maybe heightened my cachet. Mm-hmm. There was like that film Crossroads.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jack.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. God, it was so long ago. I saw it not too long ago, and I was like, man, who is that guy? Fucking bad ass,
That was Ralph Macchio.
That was Ralph Macchio. Oh, that's Ralph. But, I was invited to be in that film because of what I honed, I put the work in. It wasn't even work. I had certain skills because of the absolute thing that was important to me. So they came to me. And then when it came time to join Roth's band, it was like the most coveted guitar position in the world at the time, And when I heard about it, I don't know why, but I said, I'm going to get that gig. I just knew it. Because I knew I had all the things, and I liked that music. You know, I mean, a lot of my music you hear now, you know, whatever, it's kind of left of center of that kind of stuff, but I love that stuff. I wouldn't have survived if I didn't, because it wouldn't have sounded authentic, you know. And then with Whitesnake, you know, David Coverdale saw that I had what worked, and it was a little bit of I needed to kind of convince myself to do that, not because I didn't like the music. I thought it was a great band. I mean, and David is an incredible singer, but the desire to create and tour on this music that was in me was getting overwhelming. And finally, when I quit all that, I thought my career was over. And I said, that's it, no more rock star stuff. No more, you know, millions of dollars or whatever, you know, and the magazines and all that stuff. But that's how powerful that desire to kind of, you know, to find your note and do it is. And so when I did Passion and Warfare, I had no expectations. I said, okay, nobody's doing anything like this. It's going to fall off the radar, but I have to do it. Yeah. And it was so enjoyable. It was just so nice. It's so exciting to get an idea, and you guys know, you know, and then you record it and you listen to it. You know what? It's okay to be excited about your music. And it was just wonderful. And I thought it would be my secret. And, you know, I was really fortunate and shocked when it went gold in 1 week.
When I first met you was backstage at the Wiltern Theater. You were at graduation for MI.
Yeah, right.
And when you went out on stage, you very graciously acknowledged the backstage presence of the executive who'd signed you to your first record deal. And that was Don Grierson.
Ah, Don Grierson.
Yeah, and I was standing with Don when you said that, and Don was like, that was a beautiful thing that you did, and you acknowledged that particular moment. But going from playing with those bands to being a solo artist, I mean, that's obviously, there's suddenly a whole burden of energy, which is now, it's not David Lee Roth's anymore, it's now kind of yours, you know. Yeah. Was that a comfortable transition?
Well, you know, I couldn't figure out, I didn't know if I'd be able to tour again. And my music was primarily instrumental. I didn't quite see how I'd get on stage in front of a band, and I liked having a front man. Yeah. I liked not being the front guy, at least then. Now, the ham is cooking. So I like the music business. Mm-hmm. I think it's an amazing business, and it's fascinating. It's filled with creative people, and your experience in the music business is directly related to your attitude of the music business. Wow. And many people, you may even find, I used to do it, you know, you can find yourself blaming it for your lack of worldly success or whatever. But if you know the ropes, if you always look at the things that can help you and it's all there, you'll rise. You know, it'll serve you. You know, so I'm kind of a little bit nerdy too. I like, you know, figuring things out, and I keep lists, and I like checking things off. You know, so when it came time to start my own band and get out on tour and take control, I really enjoyed it. I liked it. Yeah. But when I do something like G3, that's like a vacation. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to do anything. I just show up and play. So it's all good.
It's interesting. I watched the Crossroads thing and watching. I mean, definitely the show part. It's a big part of what
Ham's cooking. Yeah.
You're hammy.
Yeah, I'm very hammy.
Yeah. You know, and I think. Do you think that makes it what you do more accessible to a wider audience?
I don't know. I don't know. It's the kind of thing where the desire to perform a particular way is greater than the concern of because then you're always second guessing. What should you do, but do what's really exciting to you.